Just a little background on his case. In November of 2004, Philippe published a very damning article entitled "Arlette Chabot and Charles Enderlin must be fired immediately," alleging that France 2, the television news station for which Chabot and Enderlin worked, violated journalistic standards by airing footage depicting as fact the false Hollywood version of the shooting of Mohammed al-Durrah, who is a 12-year-old Palestinian boy, by the IDF. The al-Durrah tapes showed a 12-year-old boy who was crouching behind his father, while only one bullet whistles and pops in the background. It is clear now, and because of Philippe's efforts, that during the 55 seconds of aired footage, the boy was not fired at, and at the end of the film, he remained alive. Karsenty claimed the footage was staged by a Palestinian cameraman named Talal Abu Rama, who has also staged similar scenes elsewhere in the 18 minutes of the tape that Karsenty viewed. After France 2 aired the clip as fact and then distributed the footage for free, other networks rebroadcasted it. Not many people know, but Daniel Pearl was beheaded by al-Qaeda in the name of Mohammed al-Durrah. There was a lynching of 2 Israeli reservists in Ramallah in October of 2000, also in revenge for Mohammed al-Durrah. This is a true blood libel. In his original article, Karsenty also announced that he was ready to defend his claims in court, and that indeed he had to do. He has been working now at a minimum, I think, for 6 years. 6 years in the
11.
courts.
In the courts, 9 years. 9 years.
9 years in a court of law. Karsenty is on the front lines of the war to expose the truth of the war against lawfare. It is extremely important that we support him. He has been using many of his own resources to defend himself in a court of law. This case against him was the essence of lawfare. It is the manipulation of a legal system to silence and punish free speech that is deemed inconvenient and free speech that exposes Islamist terrorism and the lengths that they will go to portray to the world these types of false blood libels. Not only is it extremely important to support Philippe Karsenty, and you can do so by donating to the Lawfare Project, which is a 501c3 not-for-profit, but it's also extremely important that we do not allow the French court to silence him, nor our efforts to expose the truth about Mohammed al-Durrah. Please tell your friends, please, and this is available online as well, these clips, right? Please go to Philippe's website and let's let these clips go viral. So I'm extremely honored to invite Philippe Karsenty. Thank you so much for coming.
So do all of you know this picture? Okay. So let me tell you, we're talking about Mohammed al-Durrah. So what is al-Durrah? It was September 30, 2000. France 2, the French public TV aired it. At that time, the reporter who filmed it, his name is Talal Abu Rama, the Arab cameraman, was working in Gaza, sent his material to CNN and to France 2, the French public TV. CNN rejected the pictures and said it doesn't look real, but France 2 edited the film, put the voiceover, and aired it to the whole world. And the journalist who was responsible for this, his name is Charles Enderlin. He's a French-Israeli journalist who made Aliyah 40 years ago. September 30, 2000, this is the beginning of the Second Intifada. This is a year before 9/11. So it had a huge impact on the whole Muslim world. It really created enragement in the Muslim world. But the main problem of this news report is that it's a hoax. This is the blood libel of our generation. It's not true. The picture was made by unprofessional actors. And in all these years, for 11 years, because I've been fighting for the truth for 11 years and 9 years in the Court of Justice, we've been bringing facts that it was a hoax. And they were just bringing their face that Israel was killing children. And for those of you who have already seen my presentation, this presentation is completely different because for, I would say, all these 11 past years, I've been fighting even against the Israeli establishment and the Israeli government, because the Israelis always refused to admit that this was a hoax, and they were always, I would say, against me and undermining my efforts. And finally, and you'll see it later, last May, they came out with a report which is supportive of our accusations. So it has been very, very important. So I also had a legal battle, as you mentioned, 9 years up to now, but we're going on. It will still have maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years, again, more legal battles. And as I said, 11 years of political battles and lobbying battles, and I said again, especially inside the Israeli establishment. I'd like to conclude this presentation, the beginning of this presentation, by telling you about the 3 wars that Israel has had during this past 65 years. At the beginning, they had, I would say, common wars, which were done with weapons like planes, tanks, all kinds of weapons. And all these wars, like the 6-Day Wars or the Yom Kippur War, Israel won this war, and it was good. Then the Arabs tried another way to destroy the state of Israel. They used the terrorism. So they were putting bombs everywhere, and it was very difficult. But finally, at the end, eventually, Israel won this war. And then there is a third kind of war, and this is the media war. And I must tell you that at this time, Israel is losing this war. This is the war to delegitimize the state of Israel, to completely discredit it and to destroy the state of Israel. And it's very important to understand that when Israel is losing the war in the media, they're losing the war at the United Nations, and then afterwards they're losing the war on the ground. And at this time, it's very problematic because there is not a strong decision inside the Israeli establishment to consider it as a real war. So the hoax worldwide impact, it's very important to look at it. So Brooke mentioned lynching in Ramallah. So the lynchings, the guys were screaming al-dura, al-dura, to pretend that they were taking the revenge for the death of the child. Then you had all these postage stamps, and you can see all of them. It's amazing. You have from Egypt, Jordan, Morocco, Iran, Sudan, everywhere. Then you had the Bin Laden video clip, which he did a year before 9/11, remember, and it was to incite. So let's take a look at it.
الصبي تبدد محمد يا فدا ناظريك كل زعيم محمد حظه في الوغى أدان وندد محمد يا فدا ناظريك كل جبان راح من 1000 فرسخ يتوعد محمد يا صبيا محمد مات في أيدي اليهود محمد لا تنادينا.
So then you have the Ministry of Health in Gaza, which is called Martyr Mohammed al-Durrah. You had this huge building in Tehran, you see, with this big Mohammed and his father. And here you mentioned Daniel Pearl. And of course, in the video clip, which was put online when they beheaded him, there is Daniel Pearl and there is Mohammed al-Durrah. I will not show you the ugly scene, but you will see just the justification of it. And you see the boy and the father here behind the barrel. So the justification for killing Daniel Pearl was Mohammed al-Durrah. Marwan Barghouti, who's still in jail in Israel, you know, when he was giving interviews weeks later, he was using these posters, "Stop killing Palestinian children," on the right-hand side. And here you see the Hezbollah flag and this young child, and you can see all the size of this poster, which is huge, you know. And "My son, from your blood, the sun arise." So it's a big, big, big propaganda. And this is probably the biggest monument up to date. It's in Bamako, which is the capital of Mali in Africa. And this is the largest square. People who were there told me that it's like Times Square there, you know, a huge monument. And of course, last year we had the killing of the Jewish children in Toulouse. And Mohamed Merah, who was the killer, just before being killed by the French policemen, said that he killed the Jewish children to take revenge on the Palestinian children killed in Gaza. So it has had huge consequences all over the world. So why al-Durrah is a hoax? So first, I'd like to insist on the fact that it's not a thesis against another one. It's a demonstration. It's a scientific demonstration. Our sources have never been contested, and our major sources are France 2 documents, their material, their film and their raw footage. We had experts' opinion. We had experts on ballistics, forensic scientists. We had also biometricians and even graphologists who testified in our favor and said that it was not real. The pioneers of this story, and I insist on that, I'm not the one who discovered the blood libel. I'm not the one who discovered it in 2000. It's Nahum Shahaf, who's an Israeli scientist who made a great job discovering it. And then afterward, it was very difficult for him to have the truth conveyed, even in Israel. So Esther Shapira, who was a German filmmaker, did a documentary in 2002. She was working for ARD, and she's still working there, which is a German public TV. And she made a documentary first saying that the boy was not killed by the Israelis, but by the Arabs. And then, this is a story which attracted me, and then afterward, she made a second documentary where I appear, and when she came to the same conclusion as ours. So let's watch the news report which was made by France 2. Remember, it's owned by the state, so it's state-owned. I would say it's the voice of the French government. Let's watch it.
Tout vient de basculer près de l'implantation de Netzarim dans la bande de Gaza. Les Palestiniens ont tiré à balles réelles, les Israéliens ripostent, ambulanciers, journalistes et simples passants sont pris entre deux feux. Ici, Jamal et son fils Mohamed sont la cible de tirs venus de la position israélienne. Mohamed a 12 ans, son père tente de le protéger. Il fait des signes, mais une nouvelle rafale. Mohamed est mort et son père gravement blessé.
Okay, so this is a clip. I'm saying that all of this is staged. So let me give you the France 2 version of the fact. First, they said that the Israeli soldiers were at a distance of 80 meters from the boy and the father. I'm asking you here in this room, for example, let's pretend you have this target, which would be the boy and the father, at 80 meters, a fixed target like that. How many bullets do you need to hit a target like that? One. Okay, so let's listen to the French version of the fact. And we're talking about Israeli sharpshooters, not anyone else. They pretend that it took 45 minutes for Israeli soldiers to shoot at them. It's a fixed target, remember that. Then afterward, they said that they were shot and killed with 3 bullets. We're talking about 3 high-velocity bullets. And that the father got 12 bullets, but he was just injured. I suggest that we take a look at the last picture after these 15 high-velocity bullets. Of course, no blood, nowhere. Just with common sense, you can understand that it just doesn't make sense at all. It's ridiculous. But let me show you the only source of the al-Durrah news report, who's the Arab cameraman. Talal Abu Rahma, he's a man so credible, according to French public TV. Listen to him, he's very interesting.
There were many bullets, right? Coming...
Hundreds. Hundreds. Yeah, there is some bullets hit the... But that doesn't mean anything. Okay, look at the wall. There is a lot of bullets around the boy. You know, I count them, 40. On the wall, only 40.
Okay, do you hear that? He said hundreds of bullets, and then after he said, look at the wall, only there's 40 bullets, which would be less than 1 per minute, you know, if you compare to 45 minutes. Now, let's listen to him again in another interview.
We have evidence, the kind of the bullet, I film it, the kind of the bullet, we pick up the bullets from the wall.
What bullet was it? What would you say? How long was it?
I don't know. You interviewed one from the general, he could tell you.
But the general claimed that no investigation took place.
France do collected.
So you're doing a better investigation job than the police?
No, we have some secrets, you know, for ourselves. We cannot give anything, just everything.
We cannot give everything, you know, we have our secrets, you know, for our...
France too has secrets?
Yes, of course. They cannot give to the police and everybody, you know. So, of course, you understand that this guy is a liar. His body language is lying. Everything is lying in this guy. But he's the source for France 2. It's in Gaza since more than 25 years. So I'd like you now to read the statement that they brought to the court. remember that we had trials, and at the court they brought written testimonials. And I think it's very interesting to read them. Israeli soldiers were firing missiles. A plane was firing at them from overhead. And there were helicopters, Israeli snipers, firing anti-tank missiles. Can you imagine what we're talking about? But despite all that, and you know, they're very bad shooters in Israel, no blood and only 8 bullets on the wall. Just if you take a look at this hole in the wall, you know, if they pretend that he got like 12 holes like that in his body, I mean, in French we would call this a gruyère. So I'd like to show you a few more pieces of evidence. The same day at the same spot, Arab cameramen were filming fake scenes, and we took raw material from AP, Reuters, and we just took 2 of them just to make fun of the story. So look, an ambulance comes, then someone rides quietly his bicycle, but here's the man doesn't need to be carried, he runs inside the ambulance. And this is it in Gaza the same day, okay? So there is no war. Another thing you see is that the guy here is not wounded at the beginning, but at the end, yes. He gets out of the ambulance and then he falls on the ground. So this is what we're having from AP, Reuters, and France too. They were staging, and you have to understand that's a pattern for them. They're using staged scenes everywhere in the Muslim world to manipulate the Western media. So I'd like to show you now, you know, a dead boy is dead. Now we got in the raw footage the 10 seconds of raw footage after he died. Just take a look at the dead boy. So look at his elbow, look at the face of the father, and look at his foot. Now he's dead. So you've seen, he raised his elbow, turned his face towards the cameraman, and the father smiles, and you can see that the boy raised his foot. You can watch it again if you want. Raise his elbow, puts it down. Here, he raised his elbow like that. You can watch it again if you want. Look, you see here? And puts down. The father smiles. Okay, this is not a dead person for sure. I'm telling you that the al-Durrah news report is a stage hoax. Just take a look at this picture in case you have doubts. 15 bullets. So I had to use the French Court of Justice. Why? Because I had no standing, and it was Israel who had to sue France too, but I was not able to sue France too. So the only way was to write a provocative article to make sure that they would sue me, and they did it. So I was able then to engage them in a public debate, because before that, when people were arguing with them and asking them, it's the problem with your film, they were saying, oh, you're behaving like Holocaust deniers, you know, you're denying the death of a child. Then it was useful to force them to present all their pieces of evidence, and namely their raw footage. All their pieces of evidence, they had nothing, only false testimonials, as you've seen, fire, helicopters, and everything. And during these 13 years, they didn't bring a single piece of evidence to substantiate their strong accusation of having seen the boy killed by the Israelis. On our side, we brought more than between 50 and 100 pieces of evidence of the staging, and I'll be able to show you and give you more information. It was also useful to create an international debate, and I can say that now most of the people know that there is an al-Durrah controversy. At that time, we were considered as nutcases, completely conspiracy theorists and all these stories. But I insist on the point that justice was not a final objective. It was simply a tool. It was a tool to get all this raw footage, to get a debate with them, to really have a real fight. So what were the judicial steps? And I think it's really important here because we are at the Loafer project. So 2004, I published my article and on my website, Media Ratings, and I really wanted them to sue me for defamation. It was written, my address was written. If you want to sue me, here is the exact address of my company, please sue me. And they did it. The first trial went very well. At the end of the trial, the government advisor said Karsenty was right. He brought enough evidence of the staging. He shouldn't be found guilty of defamation. But I live in France, a strange country where the president can send letter and be used, and they could be used in the Court of Justice. So Jacques Chirac had sent a letter to Charles Anderlin, the journalist responsible for this, where he said that he was such a great journalist, and they brought it to the court, and I was found guilty of defamation. Bad. So I appealed. At the appellate court trial, it was interrupted because they asked for friends to bring the raw footage. You know, they always pretended that they had 27 minutes of raw footage showing the agony of the kid, when the kid received the bullet, all this stuff. So, but when they brought to the court, first they tampered with the evidence. They deleted 9 minutes. And instead of bringing anything which was really important, they just brought stupid scenes where you could see people talking in front of the cameraman, and the 50 seconds that you've seen before, and of course, the 10 seconds of the boy raising his elbow after his so-called death. But I won the case on May 2008. It was a big relief for me, but just a week later, you had 800 French journalists who signed a petition saying that I was kind of a Holocaust denier and that Charles Enderlin was such a great journalist. So they appealed to the French Supreme Court to have the verdict annulled. And the verdict was annulled. The French Supreme Court, Cour de Cassation we call it. Why? Because they said that the French Court of Justice, the Supreme Court, didn't have the right to ask for the raw footage. So you didn't have the right to look for the raw footage, but they had the right to say what they said. So we had a new trial, appellate trial, on January 2013. The verdict was expected on April. We were called for the verdict. I came to the court and they said, we're sorry, we cannot deliver the verdict. Went back and they said, you have to come back on May. I came back on May. We're sorry, we cannot deliver the verdict. Come back in June. So we came back in June, and then in June I was found guilty of defamation, and I had to pay 11,000 euros, which is approximately $14,000. It's interesting because the verdict says, we're not telling you that you're wrong, that it's not a hoax. We're just telling you that in 2004, when you published your article, you didn't have enough pieces of evidence that it was a hoax. So their accusation, I'm found guilty of having, I would say, if you follow their reasonment, of having been too intuitive in 2004, you know, which is insane. And on July 2013, of course, I appealed to the French Supreme Court to see where they will go. And you know, everybody who has read the verdict thinks that the verdict is a completely highly political decision which has been taken by the Court of Justice. It has nothing, I mean, they try to ignore anything which goes on my side, and they just blame me for things I've not even been doing. So I'd like to show you, remember we mentioned the State of Israel. So I'm talking about the Israeli Minister of Foreign Affairs, which has been very problematic for years. And I'd like to show you what the Israeli spokesman said after I won my trial in 2008. So it was when I was really on the winning side. It's Igal Palmor, I don't know if you know the name. And he said, Karsenty is a private individual and no one in the Israeli government asked him to take on his battle against France too. And then he said he was summoned to court because of a complaint of the French television channel. I don't see where there is room for the Israeli government to get involved. The government does not have an official stand as to what exactly happened on September 30, 2000 at Netzarim, and sees the issue as an internal French affair, not Israeli. And he concludes his statement by saying Karsenty's work is counterproductive. So just that you understand what kind of problem I had to face in the Israeli establishment. But thank God, on May 2013, we got the Israeli official report. After more than 10 years of intensive lobbying, and I can tell you that I know all the corridors of the Prime Minister's office and from all these guys, been there for so many years, just trying to make them open their eyes. I've been also the Minister of Foreign Affairs, but it was very difficult. It was really, when we got this, it was really an important objective which was reached for us. And the report came to the same conclusions as ours, but 10 years later. That's a problem. So what do we need now to win the al-Durrah battle? Because we need to, even though now we have the support of the State of Israel, we need to win this battle. First, I'd like to tell you, it's in the history books, as well as it is, as you've seen in the streets, in the monuments, everywhere, in stamps, everywhere in the Muslim world. And it's in the brains everywhere in the world. Go and ask and show this picture in any French street. Everybody knows this picture, and they say, oh yes, the Israeli killed the boy. And I'd like to insist on a point. It's not a French story. You know, France is just a piece in the middle. It's not only an Israeli one. It's the blood libel of our generation. Okay, I think it's really important to understand that this picture was built and created in order to destroy the state of Israel. And it works because it's in the brain of everybody now. So our objectives are very clear. We want that France to officially acknowledge that the video is a hoax. This is my major objective. And then we have to spread the message of truth all over the world. So in order to win the al-Durrah battle, I have to win first the legal battle engaged in 2004 and future legal actions, because I think that we can go now in America and sue them in another way and in any other country, just, because the problem is going in the French Court of Justice is that it's twisted, You have all the influential people inside the French establishment who are putting pressure on the judge. I can give you an example of what happened. It's something which is very important. In 2008, I won the case in the Court of Justice, and this judge was, for me, a brilliant woman. And a year later, she was asked by another lawyer, wait a minute, how comes you ruled in favor of Karsenty? And the lawyer was a friend of mine. And she said, oh, you can imagine. I had so much pressure from the minister, from all the French establishment to rule against Karsenty. And they even threatened me, and they said, look, if you're ruling in favor of Karsenty, we're going to ruin your career. And you know what she said? She said, I'm sorry, but I'm retiring in 3 months, so I don't care. That's strong. So we have to make it a grassroots cause, a grassroots organization. And this is why, as you mentioned, Brooke, I've been traveling for more than 10 years at my own expense for a major part of it to spread the message of truth and really to evangelize, if I can use the word. But I must tell you that I thought it would be easier to win, but now I really need to build, chapters all over America, because this is the only country of free speech and the country where truth can be fight firm. I need to have large communications actions with ads, film, and I'll tell you about an ad that I'm preparing, film, DVDs, flyers to spread the message. And we have to make it impossible for the French leadership to keep on defending the al-Durrah libel, because you have to understand that at this time, they don't care. I mean, I went to the Élysée Palace, which is the French White House, when Sarkozy was the president. And you know what they did? They gave the Legion of Honor to Charles Underlin, the guy responsible for the hoax. They don't really care about the truth. And now I have access to the new President Hollande, and I think we can reach him in order to, not put pressure, but ask him just to reveal the truth. And my first big action will be next month on September 30, 2013, I will buy a page in Le Figaro, which is a French daily, an important one, an open letter to President Hollande, and we're preparing it in order to really say, look, you cannot pretend that you were not aware of the case. And I'd like you to conclude by please ask you to join me, because I need your suggestions and ideas at the end and your introductions. Maybe you don't know the guy from CNN or from Fox, but maybe you know someone who knows someone there, and you can help me to have access. And I think it's really important to spread the message, and I like to listen to all your ideas. I need people representing me, so I already have some people in, for example, in Colorado, in Los Angeles, in Pennsylvania, but if I have someone in New York, I'll be very happy. I need support for my actions. Now it's becoming financially exhausting. Everything costs a lot of money. The trials cost a lot of money, all these trips, all these trials. And I don't know if I mentioned it, but for the past 11 years, I've stopped working, and I've been using my reserves for all these years just because I was concentrated on fighting for the truth. So I really need to raise money. Maybe you're not able, but maybe you know some people who are willing to support. I'll be back in the USA on November for a whole lecture tour. So if you're interested in setting up something to help me to spread the message and to gather more forces, thank you very much.
Who do you think these people were? They think they were actors? I mean, they were amazingly good actors.
Well, if you want, we can watch it again, and you'll see if they're good actors. I mean, I'm telling you something. If you can see during the film, you see that there is only one bullet which is shot at them, above them.
During what you showed us, there's only one bullet. There were bullets. There were bullet marks in the wall behind them.
Yeah, but none of them have been filmed, so you don't know when they were filmed, when they were shot. You don't know if they were shot at the time before, after, whatever. You don't know anything about when the bullets were shot. And I'm telling you something. One bullet was shot, and I know that it's frightening, and we know exactly because as I told you, we have limited time. But for example, we have the Arabic translation of what the father is screaming. We took a deaf person, someone who cannot hear, who read the lips of what the father was saying, an Arab person, and he's telling to the people behind the camera, where the Arabs there are, please stop shooting. So he's not talking to the Israelis, he's talking behind the cameraman. So there was one bullet which was shot just above their head.
Well, he said, please stop shooting. Look, I'm not saying that it was necessarily the IDF that shot these people. It could have been the Palestinian. I don't know. But the idea that this was all staged seems absurd to me.
Wait, I'm sorry. It's very interesting.
It does not happen every day.
There was just video clips of the Muslim.
Look, I'm sorry. What is your profession, sir?
I'm an attorney.
Attorney, okay. So I suggest that you ask any doctor in the world and ask them if someone who got 15 bullets on their body, I'm not talking about 15 bullets, high velocity bullets, if it could be like that. Just take the picture, it's everywhere on the internet, or send me an email and ask them after 15 bullets if you could be in this position. That's it. You know what? And take a look otherwise also to the boy when he raises up. Everything is on the internet. Ask a medical doctor. I must tell you something. During these past 13 years minus 1 month, we had doctors who testified in our favor that it was a hoax. The France 2, which is a state-owned government channel, never found a single doctor was willing to testify that it was possible that this could be some people who received 15 bullets. That's it. So you can think it's absurd. I'm talking about science. You're an attorney, you have nothing to do with science.
Yeah, I have nothing to do with science, and I can...
In France, you could be found guilty for defamation, even if they agree what you're saying is true. But if you did not know, if they don't think you should have known it was true at the time.
Yeah.
So the court said what you're saying is true. However, we will fine you nonetheless because according to our legal system, we have to find that you could have known it was true.
Exactly.
Did the court say what you're saying is true, or did they say it might be true? Did they say...
The court said first, the cameraman is a liar. Charles Anderlin is a liar. France 2 lied so much. But they said, okay, even if they lied, even if your material is sometimes compelling, we must say that in 2004, we decided that you didn't have the pieces of evidence, which is not true because I had the boy raising his elbow. Well, I had it 2 months. I'm sorry, let me finish. Okay. I had it 2 months later, and the picture of the father and the boy. That's it. I had it the same day. So it's obvious when you take medical doctors and ask them, please, and that's very easy. Go to any place, any doctor in the world, and ask him, did these people? I'm telling you that these people got 15 bullets altogether. Is it possible? We're talking about high velocity. None of them will agree. That's it. So that's scientific.
I just wanted to ask if the boy, ultimately, if you know that the boy and the father are still alive.
So the father, we know that he is still alive. He lives in Gaza, despite the 12 bullets, and we always offered him to come to Paris and to show his body, because he has scars all over his body. So we say, we're paying for the ticket, we're paying for the experts who will testify that your scars look like bullet holes. But no, we know that the scars that he has came from scalpel and knives attacks. He was attacked in Gaza by knives and axes, and he was treated in Tel HaShomer hospital by a French-Israeli doctor, and we had all this. So we said, you come to Paris and we can see your body and we can testify that you're right or not wrong, but he always refused. The second thing about the boy, my job, if I can say my job, stops when the cameraman closes his camera. At the end, when he says the boy is dead and he airs it, this is it. Maybe he died 5 hours later, maybe he died 5 months later, 5 years, maybe he's alive. But as I told you before, we're bringing facts and they're bringing their faith that it's the truth. So even if you bring today, I'm Mohammed al-Durrah, I've been living for 12 years in New York, it's been very good, I had a very good time, but it was too dangerous for me in Gaza, they won't believe you. Even if you do face comparison, let me go and take you to face comparison. We took the picture of the boy at the funeral, and we took the picture of the boy who was filmed in the film of France 2, and the guy at the autopsy. The autopsy and the funeral, it's the same boy. Good. But it's a different face from the one you're seeing in the France 2 film. So so they're pretending that that he really had an autopsy and that he was buried, but the face is different. And I can give you another stupid story. The dead boy arrives at the hospital, and it's certified by the doctor at the hospital in Gaza at 10 a.m. Dead. Okay, 10 a.m. dead. The France 2 scenes is filmed at 3 p.m. alive at 3 p.m., then dead at 3:45. So I know it happened 2,000 years ago, they said it, that someone resurrected in Israel. But I'm sorry, if he's dead at 10 a.m., he cannot be alive at 3 p.m. and then dead at 3:45 and then alive after he died at 3:40. It doesn't make sense. So I don't know where he is, but I can tell you that what we know for sure is that the end is not dead.
What you're trying to argue to all of us, and what I think most of us believe, and what I think many people in the Jewish community will believe, is that this is a hoax. And I do believe it. And it looks like the majority of the people in the room do believe it. But I think that one of the rules when selling or when arguing that something is a hoax is that it automatically will appeal most to the people who already want to believe that it's a hoax. And I kind of think of people who are trying to say that 9/11 is a hoax or the Boston Marathon is a hoax. Not that I'm comparing you to any of those people. But I'm saying that those arguments appeal best to the people who already want to believe that it is a hoax. Now, I know that you won in court, all right, but I think that as lawyers, most of us know that winning in court does not exactly affect public opinion. So my question really is, how will you plan to sell this? How will you model this to those who are automatically seeking I can't even say the word, I work in this area, to delegitimize Israel? It's like my job is combating delegitimization, but I can't even say the word. It happens. And by the way, hi Mom, I'm on Shalom TV. How do you think that you model this argument to sell it to that crowd?
This is important also. You have to understand first that my job was to educate the people who were not already convinced. My job, for example, when I went to the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and I tell you, I know almost each of their offices, was to explain them, and it's very difficult. And even though in Israel you still have people who are still defending it because they just don't understand the importance of it and they just want to protect Charles and Erlin. So I agree with you. We're talking here to most of the people who already know, but these people who are in this room, as they have been yesterday in New Jersey and tomorrow in Toronto and LA and Boulder, will convey the message and will help us, because we need to spread the message. When you're caught in lie, you're the only one who can admit that you lied. Okay, and this is it. We need to put so much pressure on the French government that they will admit it's a lie. And I had a meeting, for example, at the Élysée Palace with one of the advisors of President Hollande, and he told me, look, Philippe, we know you're right. We don't know how to get out of this. So it's a question of pressure. It's a question of truth. It's a question, the more we spread the truth, the more we're closer to the victory, which will be revealing the truth to the whole world. And this is why now, I've been doing this by myself for 11 years now. I really need the support of everybody. I need to really build an organization, build people, networks, first to spread the message and also to get money, to get support, because then, putting ads in the newspaper, spreading the message on the internet, spreading everywhere can really change and put the pressure on them.
I understand that the Israeli government has now thanked you publicly for your efforts.
No, they don't thank me. I'm not asking them. No, they agreed that it's a hoax, but they're not. I don't ask for any thanks or anything. But just that's it. They just came to the same conclusion as ours, but 10 years later.
Question is about motive, and motive is very hard to determine, especially with government. But what motive would you attribute to the Israeli Ministry of Information for not wanting to take a position for so many years and saying almost it has nothing to do with us, it's a French internal matter? What was driving them in that direction?
Okay, that's a very important question. Look, in 2000, there was a prime minister in Israel whose name was Ehud Barak. And Ehud Barak was having a partner for peace whose name was Yasser Arafat. So they didn't want, of course, you can put wherever you want your quotes. Okay, but Ehud Barak said that he didn't have to infuriate his friend Yasser Arafat to go for peace with him. Then you also had inside the Israeli establishment so many people who were blaming Israel for everything, and you still see this today. And then I must tell you that there are French journalist Charles Erlin, who's now still working for France too. He's a very well-connected guy. I can give you an example of what happened a month ago in Switzerland, because I lectured there 3 months ago. 3 months ago I lectured in Switzerland, and there were two people who attended my lecture. One of them is a good friend of mine, a lawyer, and the second one is Joel Herzog. He's the son of Chaim Herzog, the former president of the State of Israel. I mean, good, credible guys. And the guys went to the Israeli ambassador and said, look, we've seen a presentation of al-Durrah of Karsenty. This is very interesting. And what did the Israeli ambassador to Switzerland said? Don't talk to me about that. Karsenty is a nutcase. He caused so much harm to the state of Israel. Charles Underlin is such a great journalist. He's our friend, and we like him. So you have to understand, they live in a small society where some people are defending their friends, and they're, I would say, if I can be provocative, I would say it's kind of a mafia, you know. But the truth is that it's very difficult to find in Israel some people really aware of the importance of the media battle. It's very difficult. And when you're talking to them about anti-Semitism, it's just a concept for them. You know, here in America, maybe you have a small taste of it, but when you live in France, you really feel it in your everyday life. You know, conversations, media, sometimes insults. But what I mean is that for Israel, they just don't understand. And I will go to the cynical part of the Israeli Minister of Foreign Affairs, and this was terrible. Once I was there, and I met for a guy a presentation, and the guy told me, well, if you're not happy, come and live in Israel. We need more people like you in Israel. The intention of the guy was telling you know what, we don't care if there is kind of some of anti-Semitism in Europe because it helps us to get more Jews. So you have all these reasons and bad reasons and good reasons. And I can give you another reason. Some people, and I think this is serious, told me that Talal Abu Rahma, the cameraman who did it, was also after he was caught in this lie, was working for the Israeli services, you know, giving information. He was a real collaborator, but his cover was fantastic. And I don't care about telling it in front of the news now because it became so important. And you know, you have some Israeli people who are so short-sighted, they just don't understand the historical importance of this case. Just don't see how big it is and the result of it. And I must tell you, I must be sorry, but what happened in Toulouse really infuriated the Israelis, and they really understood that they had to fight for it. It's really Toulouse which triggered their investigation. If you look at the image of the state of Israel, for let's say at least 3 decades, it has been declining. And the main problem is that they are still keeping the same PR, you know, apologize and then justify, and apologize and justify. I'll tell you something, if I was the boss of a company and my sales were going down for 30 years, and we keep the same selling process, I would change the selling process. And I don't say that they have to be aggressive, but they have to be on the offensive side now.
Was there any response from the IDF? Did they have a spokesman? Did they review this? Did they have filming? Did they have eyewitnesses of any of their soldiers, number one? And number two, considering the number and the influence of the Muslims in France, do you really think that the government or the courts would ever do anything in your favor for fear of the response of the Muslims?
Okay, the first question, the IDF. When it happened, the IDF admitted the crime and said we probably made a mistake, and they apologized, which is the automatic attitude of the IDF. They just don't understand. The problem is that, I must tell you something, they just don't understand who they have in front of them. The Arabs who are in front of them are lying, and their weapon is to lie. But the IDF is still working like they're playing chess with a Swiss player. No. You understand what I mean? So this is the problem. And then after it was very difficult for them because the guy in the IDF who admitted the crime 13 years ago climbed also in the Israeli establishment. So any time we wanted to get the truth out, he was always there undermining our efforts because he was covering his, you understand?
They just admitted they shot him and that was it?
Yeah. And then afterward they said, well, maybe it was not coming from us, we don't know, but they just wanted to forget about it. And the question, and the point, you know, when he said Karsenty's work is counterproductive, because he said, it's because of Karsenty that we still talk about this. But I'm not there in Mali, in Bamako, I'm not there in everywhere in the world, I'm not there building these monuments. They decided not because of me, they decided because it was so useful for them. So now let's talk about the Muslim. I tend to disagree with you. Of course we have a large Muslim population, but go to the French media outlets. Go and look who are the bosses of this organization. Most of them are Jewish.
Same thing during Drive.
Yeah, and what are they doing? They're paying a very high price. The high price is to blame Israel much more than they should in order to cover their position and to keep their seat. And then, when the real anti-Semites wants to blame Israel, they say, oh look, what we're saying is much less than Mr. Cohen or whatever is saying. You understand? So that's the situation. At this time, the Muslims don't have the power in France. But some of the Jews are at the top of the media, and they are the worst enemies of the State of Israel.
Thinking of the response, if somehow it came out that this was a hoax and people believed it, wouldn't the Muslims riot against this, cause some kind of problems because they're saying that isn't true?
Don't care. I'm talking about the truth. You know, I think that the world has to be built on the truth. If you keep on having this kind of lies, I can tell you Jews will be killed for centuries again. And I think this, remember the protocols of the elders of Zion, okay? This is much more powerful than the protocol, and I can tell you why. All of you know this picture. Everybody has seen this picture. Can I ask in this room, honestly, don't lie, we're fighting for the truth, who read entirely the protocol of the elders of Zion in this room? Okay, 3 people? Okay, 3 people. Go in the street, how many? Nobody, almost nobody. But you've seen the impact. But this picture, it's very easy. It's much stronger than any book.
This is like the second Dreyfus trial where they knew he was innocent and they found him guilty.
Well,
that's... At that point, everybody knew.
Well, but Dreyfus is Israel in this case. The State of Israel is Dreyfus.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, well, I agree. And you know, I must tell you something that's much more important than Dreyfus' case in terms of impact, because Dreyfus was just a man who was found guilty of betrayal and everything. But here, all the Jews have been accused of having friends of people who wanted to kill children just for the pleasure.
You used the expression quickly towards the end, and that was what my question is based on. Don't confuse me with the facts, which always seems to be the case with something concerning Israel. I mean, do you ever get despondent in any way over the fact, like I do when I try to argue against the BDS movement, the boycott, divestment, sanctions? You know, I say to the BDS crowd, if the Dalai Lama comes to you and says, why are you wasting all your energy against Israel? What about China that invaded Tibet and is trying to do away with the Tibetan people? And they just give you a shrug of the shoulders and walk away. Do you ever get that feeling when you present all these facts and the world says, you know, Philippe, another day, we're anti-Israel, they won't use those words, and whatever the facts, Israel is guilty?
Okay, let me tell you something. I understand what your point. Have you heard about the Fogel family in Israel? Yes, of course. Okay. You know that it's a hoax, that they're still alive and they live in Paris. No, it's a joke. Of course, it's a silly joke. But what I want to tell you, if you know now that they will be living in Paris happily and that it was a hoax, you would be so happy to know that they were alive. You agree with me? You would be so happy to them. But these guys, when you show them this Arab boy and you tell them, look, you believe you were crying because he was killed, but I can tell you he was not killed. It's a hoax. They should be very happy. No, they're really unhappy. And it tells you exactly that they're not looking for what they call the Palestinian people. They're not fighting for them. They're just looking for any pieces that can help them to feed their anti-Semitism. That's it. And I think it's really important to understand this, that this is useful. This is a useful tool for our enemies. And unfortunately, sometimes our enemies are from inside.
Could you explain to me French libel law? Because truth is an absolute defense in American libel law.
Okay, we have a completely different system. Truth is not a defense here. Even if Charles Enderlin goes on TV tomorrow and says, okay, we faked, it's a hoax, I can be found guilty of defamation, because they can pretend and say, look, in 2004, you didn't have the information. Really, the accusation for me now is of being, I would say, visionary, I would say, too intuitive.
The question is, in my mind, are you going to make this an individual effort for your issue, or is it the tip of an iceberg for all the media distortions, including, you talked about the stage journalism, the Pallywood, Palestinian Hollywood that we know about. The issue is multifold. So is yours going to be part of a general campaign, or just making it a specific issue and trying to win on this one issue?
Look, I tell you something. I completely agree with you. Focusing on only one issue doesn't make sense, except for this one, which is a historical piece, which is really the strongest, which is a starting point of the campaign of delegitimization. I got it. But At this point, I need to focus on it. The organization I'm building in France will not only be about media hoaxes and everything like that. We need to fight for the truth. Fighting for the truth in any field is very important. And I can tell you something, that even if I fight for the truth on other topics, which will be something else which has nothing to do with Israel, it's important because it makes people understand that the media are brainwashing them. And when you make people aware of the brainwashing of the media, and when you can destroy the credibility of the media on a certain topic which is different from Israel, then after you can talk to them about Israel and tell them, look, they've been lying to you about, medicines or something like that. Now you see that they're lying to you about Israel. And I can tell you something, and I'm sure all of you have a profession. I'm asking you something very simple. In your profession, when the media outlets are talking about it, it's always stupid, it's always fake, they always have a bias, So you know that. But people have to be aware of that. So the people who are selling cars, when their job is to sell cars, when they're talking about selling cars on TV, they understand that it's ridiculous and that it's biased. We have to make them understand that it's biased also against Israel. Because remember, we are not working for the New York Times or any other TV channel. We are working for the history books, for the next generations. We have Jews who have been killed, and not only Jews, Christians and even Muslims killed because of these terrorist attacks. We need to fight for the truth. This is the blood libel of our generation. Look at my email. It's very easy. It's my first name as a French, 1L, 2P, and an E, @karsenty.fr. Send me an email. Even if you don't have suggestions, even if you don't want to support, send me an email. I'll put you on my mailing list, and then please spread the message. I need to have the message spread out. And then with you, we'll reach some other people. They really have to understand that this is a war. And this war is the one of our generation.
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who wishes to support Shalom TV with a tax-deductible gift of $36, double high or more, to the nonprofit organization Jewish Education in Media. Simply visit the Shalom TV website homepage and click on the Donate button to make a donation by PayPal or your credit card. And please indicate the program for which you would like a DVD. Or you can send your tax-deductible check made out to GEM. To GEM, Post Office Box 180, Riverdale Station, Bronx, New York, 10471. And again, please remember to indicate which program you would like to receive on DVD with our compliments. And we thank you for your kind support.